Hello, BookTube. I thought we'd go over a few more April releases. I've done a couple of these videos now, just taking you through some new releases that are coming out in April. We're right on the doorstep of April. And a number of you, a great number of you in emails, have told me, yeah, definitely keep doing this. In fact, a couple of you who I don't think know each other, I don't think it was a coordinated campaign, have asked me if I could do this every month for every book. So I'm sure that I'm missing a lot of April new releases. Believe it or not, as insane as it is to me, a lot of publisher releases, the publishers don't really put out there. They don't really raise any kind of a profile on them. Don't know how they expect to make money without doing that. I think, once again, it's a case of them just not knowing that something like BookTube exists. But I thought we could a few more April releases. If you're enjoying this, I certainly am. The first one is a murder mystery. This is the Noodle Shop Mystery Series by Vivian Chen. These are great, absolutely great. They are wonderful, atmospheric, funny, cozy murder mysteries. And the next one is the Chow Maniac, with a skull on the chopsticks there. Just wonderful. I don't know what the plot of this thing is, but I don't really care. At this point, the Noodle Shop Mystery Series can go on forever as far as I'm concerned. I always love them. They're always wonderful. And they're always fairly solidly put together. Now, this next one is also a murder mystery, but here, with the Noodle Shop Murder Mystery, I've been reading those from the first one. I love them. I don't know anybody that reads that series that doesn't love it. It's a cozy murder mystery series, and for those of you who maybe don't read murder mysteries, that tends to mean a heightened emphasis on the environment, on a few local shops, on the quirks and eccentricities of the characters, and not so much on the brutal reality of murder. There has to be a dead body, and not so much on the day-to-day workings of the police to solve the murder. More fun and games and less forensics. Think Murder, She Wrote. Not the book series. The book series has some entertaining books in it, but think the TV show Murder, She Wrote, where things are kind of cozy, and believe it or not, even though the center of the story is a dead body, it's a place where you go to feel warm and fuzzy. I have never really cottoned to murder mysteries all that much, to cozy mysteries. They always strike me as, first of all, cookie cutter. And oh my God, cozy murder mysteries are currently having a field day in publishing at the moment. Everything cozy. Everything cozy. I think probably because the world is sinking into despotism and fascism, and that will cause your readers to want to curl up with a cozy book. And the thing about cozy murder mysteries is that they are low stakes. Again, even though there's a dead body, usually two, it's still low stakes. Usually cozy murder mystery authors will make sure that the victim wasn't liked by anybody. Like, that makes a difference. Speaking as someone who's been unlikable for a long time, I don't like the way that's tending. But the Noodle Shop Mystery Series I have loved. There are a couple of others. There's a Clam Shack cozy murder mystery series that I really love. But murder mystery series that are, I don't know, that are just pure cozy, that are just built to be cozy, those, I don't like those as much as their diehard fans do. And I always think, well, you should read outside your comfort zone. You should, if these are so popular, you should try a few more of them. So in April, I'm going to try a just cozy mystery. Not the Noodle Shop Mystery, but this thing. This is by Betty Hechtman, and it is Murder by the Hook. It's a crocheting murder mystery, cozy mystery, with patterns included. And a cat. It's Murder by the Hook. I think, if I'm remembering the publicity material correctly, this thing stars a gaggle of crocheters who call themselves the Hookers. I will try this. I'm not usually a big fan of DNFing, do not finish, where you do a couple of chapters and say, this isn't really working for me, I'm just going to drop it. I read so fast, and all I do is read and fuss around with my little baby. So it really doesn't feel justified to me to DNF a book. But I'm going to have my finger hovering over the DNF button for this thing. Because if at any point in the first few chapters the cat looks like it's trying to solve the mystery, I'm out. I'm absolutely out. Cats don't solve mysteries. Cats want you dead. They might commit murders, but they're not going to solve them. Anyway, I'm going to give Murder by the Hook a try. Then we have a graphic novel. This is Marvel Comics does full-color reprint collections called their Epic Collection. There's paperback full-color reprints of some of their comics. But they also do something called, what is this called? Modern Era Epic Collections, which are much newer. The Epic Collections tend to reprint volumes from decades ago, runs or titles from decades ago. But the Modern Era ones do much more recent things. A little bit presumptuous, but I think if you're dealing with a storyline that was really popular, you can get away with it. And I've largely been ignoring them because modern comic book storylines have been getting worse and worse in the last 10, 15 years. But this tempts me, and not just for the artist. This is called Coming Home. It's a Spider-Man collection written by J. Michael Straczynski with artwork, great artwork, by John Romita Jr., the son of the man who created the visual template for Spider-Man. John Romita Jr. is a heck of a guy. He has always been a heck of a guy since he knew how to fill out short shorts in Iowa City. And he loves drawing characters in the rain. Oh my God, he has such a thing about drawing characters in the rain. And I remember these, if I'm remembering correctly what the span of the issues reprinted in here, I remember them and like them. I remember really liking them. I would buy them anyway for John Romita Jr.'s artwork. I love him as an artist. For Marvel Comics, I love him as an artist. But even with somebody else's artwork, I would probably buy these issues. The two highlights in this collection, if I remember correctly, are one, the 9/11 issue. It was a famous 9/11 issue of Spider-Man where ordinary continuity was broken, the cover was all black, and the attacks on the World Trade Centers featured in the story for just that one issue. I've read that issue countless times. It's been reprinted countless times. I don't quite know where I stand on it. Someday Michael K. Vaughan and I will have to talk about that one issue, the black cover. That's in here. But also there's a storyline in here where Peter Parker's aged sweet Aunt May finally discovers that he is Spider-Man. Finally, she does. She walks in on him after he's been beaten to a pulp by a supervillain and only barely survived. He's dead on his feet, completely sound asleep. And of course his spider sense wouldn't go off anyway with Aunt May because she's not a threat. She just walks in on him, half in his costume, covered in bruises. And there is no hiding it after that. And I thought that Straczynski did a really good job with how Aunt May would react to that storyline. It plays out over issues. I thought he did a really good job with that. Also, he has a habit that I really like of remembering that a lot of the characters in Peter Parker's world know each other. They don't all just know each other through Spider-Man. A lot of them know each other and maybe have longer histories than we think. Like, for instance, Aunt May and J. Jonah Jameson, the publisher of the Daily Bugle, the guy who been on an anti-Spider-Man crusade for 60 years. There's a wonderful moment, I'm pretty sure it'll be reprinted in this volume, where Aunt May goes to the Daily Bugle in person to cancel her subscription to J. Jonah Jameson's face directly. She doesn't do a phone number or send a card. She wants to cancel her subscription to him in person for all the mean things she has said, that his paper has said about Spider-Man over the years, now that she knows that they're about her beloved nephew. And there's a moment, just a moment, where J. Jonah Jameson's newsman instincts almost kick in. Where he says, "What do you know that I don't know?" And then the moment goes away. I have those individual issues, but I don't know that I have these collected in any other way. So I will probably get this and probably enjoy rereading it. Then we have, Marvel has their full-color Epic Collection line. This is an Epic Collection in all but name, a modern Epic. DC has just recently started doing the same thing with a thing called DC Finest. And they've done a great job with it. Fantastic. They've listened to Michael K. Vaughan's criticisms of them, of their reprint culture, and come out with exactly the thing they need to do to bolster their monthly sales figures, regardless of how poorly their crappy monthly comics sell, where everybody's a lesbian. Their DC Finest run reprints just the same way that the Epic Collections do. The only difference being that so many of the entries in the DC Finest line are just plain puzzling. You would think the DC Finest line would be filled with stuff like Batman and Superman and the Justice League and Wonder Woman and Supergirl and the Teen Titans, but no, instead we're getting Peacemaker or Guerrilla World. It's like It's like they not only listened to Michael K. Vaughan about needing a full-color paperback reprint line, but also just whole hog listen to Michael K. Vaughan about all the crappy stuff he likes. He's the only person who's going to want a Peacemaker, DC Finest. I think they have a Doom Patrol, maybe 2 Doom Patrol. He's the only one who's going to want G.I. Joe or Sergeant Rock. If anybody at DC were listening to me, which of course they're not, I don't have a magic mummy. I have a cute dog instead. If anybody at DC Comics were listening to me, I would say, okay, Mike is right. You should beef up your reprint line, but don't follow his taste. Follow my taste. But apparently they're listening to him whole hog because this piece of crap is coming out in April. I will not be tempted. Either they're listening to him or they know that they had John Cena as Peacemaker in a couple of Suicide Squad movies, and that maybe that's the reason. I can't imagine that being the reason, but maybe so. I have no idea one way or another. I had no idea. Then this next one, a bit of a gut punch, especially after the week that I had last week. But the kind of gut punch that I have 100 of them here. So there's a kind of catharsis that you go through anyway. You like it and you go through it anyway, even though it's hard. This is Harry Bliss, the cartoonist Harry Bliss, and this is his book, You Can Never Die, about his little dog, who he memorializes many, many times in many, many cartoons, and who did die. And this is a book mainly about missing that little dog in a way that most of us don't get to do. An artist is uniquely positioned to memorialize their dog by bringing them literally to life, by showing them in artwork. I guess if you're a writer, you can memorialize your dogs in that way too. Most people who have dogs and lose them just have to lose them. That's you grieve and you remember, but you can't memorialize. I think that's why there's such a booming business in getting paw print plaques or urns of ashes or whatever. Well, that's what this is about. If you want to gather, it spreads out to be about a lot of other things too, not the artist's family and loved ones and whatnot, but the dog and the loss of the dog is at the center of this. So it'll be a gut punch. I have many books like this. Then a bit of romance, a romance novel. This is Laurie Foster, who I like. I don't think I've ever got quite the skeleton key to loving her. I always like her romances, but I know that she has diehard fans, and I would never miss a Laurie Foster novel, but I'm not one of those diehard fans. I'm not quite sure, and I keep thinking every book will be the one that does it. This is contemporary romance. This is Let Me Be the One. Fairly common premise, I think. A woman loses her husband and goes back home and finds love unexpectedly and resists it. But we'll see. One thing that I do like about Laurie Foster's novels is that she's not afraid of narrative complexity. She'll give you the bare bones. That bare bones, I think, is the bare bones of the story. And with a lot of romance novelists, they know that's all they need to do. So that's what they'll do. Friends to Lovers, Second Chance. That's not only a handled description of the novel, but the novel. And Laurie Foster's not like that. She's willing to spiderweb things out a little. I remember that from other books of hers that I've read. I have a few over on the romance bookshelf. I'll read this and see. Maybe it'll be the thing that does it. Then we have Maggie Smith. This is her latest... well, she calls it a pep talk. It's Dear Writer. It's coming out in April. It's a book designed to strategies and thoughts and inspirations to encourage writers to get started and to keep going and whatnot. I always read these kinds of books, unless they're religious motivated. If they're religious, I still read the religious motivated ones, but I do it involuntarily. I get paid to do it. But I always read these things. But I confess, I read them with a little bit of a smirk on my face because they're all bunkum. Their hearts might be in the right place. Maggie Smith's heart is certainly in the right place. Their intentions are good, but they're all bunkum. There's no magic formula. There are no magic exercises. There is no magic feng shui or pens or paper or the one plant or the positioning of your desk or whatnot. It's only a question of doing. That's all. That doesn't make a book, I know. So you can't get an advance on a thing like that. But it's only a question of doing. Writing is only a question of doing, and there is no block for that. You have a mouth, you have eyes, you have a brain, you have a hand with grasping muscles, you have writing utensils or a keyboard. So the key to writing is to write. You want to get good at it, then write every day. You want to get better at it, write more every day. No days off. No stupid excuses. No comfort zones. Keep doing it. And keep doing it is, I don't know if you've been able to count it, but that's 3 words. That's not a book. So naturally, there are always going to be books like this, but there is no secret formula. This book, I know that in her introduction, if she's anything like any other writing instruction author, she's going to poo-poo the idea of magic formula, but she's going to give them anyway. A book like this exists to give magic formula. Just write every day. Just do that. Anyway, I'll still read it. We'll see. This next one is Notes to John. This is a collection of, I gather, Joan Didion in therapy. How's that for a terrifying scenario? I gather that she was encouraged by a therapist to write letters to her dead husband, to John. And so she did that as a form of therapy, and those have somehow, for some reason, been collected. Talk about a 20th century literary artifact. I don't know what this will be. I have no idea how effective it will be. I confess I've never found Joan Didion all that effective. Not in poundage. When she's great, she's really great. But this strikes me as pan scrapings. We'll see. I could be wrong about that. I hope to be wrong about that. And then we have this skirts close. There are categories of books in 2025 and especially 2026 that I don't want to read. Perfectly willing to admit that. It's whole realms of politics that I don't want to read anymore. History will read them. I don't think I need to. There's certainly no way I'm going to review them. This isn't that. This is sad, and it skirts on the edge of that. This is Douglas Murray, who is an author that has written books that I have reviewed. He's also written books that I have considered real. But this is his new book on democracies and death cults, and it's about Israel. And aside from the Netanyahu government, I believe Douglas Murray is currently the only person anywhere in the world defending Israel's actions in its land-clearing genocide of Palestinians. I believe all of these pieces, I think this is a collection of pieces. I think they all have earlier deadlines, much closer to October 7th. But the book is still here. He obviously doesn't disavow them. And I imagine this has plenty of new stuff in it, too. This is, in other words, a MAGA book. Douglas Murray has become MAGA. And I guess there'll be a series of me saying goodbye to a series of authors who, I guess, have to choose a side. They just have to choose a side. And I have to read them if they're coming out with books, especially if they're coming out with this as an author who has credit in the Bank of Steve. If you are in that position, I have to read your book until you say goodbye, until you choose a side. So Captain Von Trapp coming home, pulling the Nazi bunting off his house and ripping it into 2 pieces. Fine. That's a stance, but it's neutral. He didn't see anybody put it up. The key in The Sound of Music is not that moment. The key in The Sound of Music is Rolf in the garden with Liesel, where he knows they're being hunted. He knows what will happen to them if they're found, and he has a choice. Do I stay silent, or do I raise the alarm on the girl I love? And he raises the alarm. After that, no more book reviewing of Rolf's books. Obviously, that if you know, I'm not talking about, I don't know who put this here, but I object to it. If you know there's a dividing line, fascism and non-fascism, freedom and MAGA, and I'm choosing fascism, well, then I want nothing more to do with you. Books or no books, credit in the Bank of Steve or no. So I don't know what I'm going to encounter here. I know on one level what I'm going to encounter. I'm going to encounter, amazingly enough, a defense of Israel's actions. A defense of the unbelievably indefensible. The first, in the 21st century, 20th century level unbelievability of indefensibility. So I know on one level I'm encountering that. I don't know what else I'll encounter. God help us, I don't want to know. We'll see. And then the last book on this list for April, I am told by those who purport to know that this is not written by AI. I'm told that this April release is not written by AI, that it is in fact written by a person. And I'm just going to go with that. This is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I myself, just personally, not professionally, not as a critic, just personally, I myself not only believe that there is no Emily that Emily Henry is an AI and always has been, but that is fairly well known. That there is no actual flesh and blood person called Emily Henry. I myself can't think of any better explanation for what the books read like, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. She could be a flesh and blood person who's just trying to imitate an AI. Either way, a little like, she's not anything, I hope, if she's a living person, I hope she's not anything like Douglas Murray. But either way, these two last books do have something in common, which is that if this reads exactly like an Emily Henry AI novel, it will be the last thing I read, no matter how popular she is by her. I myself don't believe and will not believe, even at the end of this book, that this was written by a person. I know what I'm going to get here, but we'll see. We'll see. I could be wrong. So anyway, sorry, we'll end on a weirdly contentious note for this batch of April releases. So we can keep going with April releases if you want to do that. I promise that Rolf will not come up in the next batch. Just let me know. This is always talking about new books. Is always my pride and joy. I absolutely love doing it. So let me know if you want to do that. We'll just go through another batch of April releases. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. But I'll see you all soon. Thank you, BookTube.